Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Terence Wong, heading the APAC 5G industry community. So welcome to join our first logistic port and transportation industry interest group. So this workshop is about how 5G transforming airport and aviation. So welcome to post your question in the Q&A boxes, as we can try to answer you online or offline. So the workshop also provide simultaneous Mandarin translation. So you can select the Chinese channel in the Zoom menu. Okay, so let's go through the agenda today. We have a very good line of speakers from the region. After my first introduction, we have Airport Authority of Hong Kong, who will share you about how they develop 5G, advancing Airport 4.0. And then we have a follow-up panel, which is coming from a lineup of their partnership for Hong Kong Airport 5G deployment, including Airport Authority Hong Kong, China Mobile Hong Kong, and also the Global Aviation Head of Huawei Technology. And then we have another keynote from Airbus, who will share about the role of 5G in between aircraft and airport in realizing digital transformation in the aviation industry. And then finally, we also have another panel, which is about 5G from an airline and aircraft manufacturer perspective. And we have Accenture to help us to moderate the session. So let's start. If you don't know about GSMA, we represent the interests of the mobile industry with members all around the world. We're uniting more than 1,000 members, including mobile operator and a wider company from the broader mobile ecosystem and also different industry sector. So every year we produce very large global conference, MWC at Barcelona, Shanghai, Los Angeles, and Africa. We also have regional conference, Mobile 360. One of our conference this year will be in Singapore on August. We always bring thought leadership, pioneer. We work together with the member to drive some new industry initiative, including 5G, IoT. So regarding to the 5G, the technology already rolled out for more than 2 years, and we have more than 172 mobile operators roll out 5G across 68 markets up to the Q3 last year. So in region APAC, we have more than 15 market roll out 5G. In ASEAN, more than 50% of the market already roll out 5G. Recently, we also recognize Malaysia roll out 5G as well, besides Thailand, Philippines, Singapore, Indonesia. So the reason we set up the 5G industry community is to support a very large APAC region, but also very fragmented. So we are very honored to have our contributor member coming from mobile operator, government agency, and also some leading enterprise in different sectors to help us together to build up this 5G industry community. We aim to make mobile industry and adjacent industry partnership, which help them for digital transformation, accelerating the usage of 5G and cellular IoT. So this year, we have a consensus in this region. We need to provide more focus and support for 3 sectors, including manufacturing, logistics, port and transportation, and healthcare. So today we have the logistics, port and transportation workshop. So in our community, we have enterprise. For example, Hong Kong International Airport is one of them. So they will, we aim to help them to learn, understand, and explore how 5G can create value for their business. Of course, they always concerned about the 5G investment and also need to get the real benefits for the return. We also, of course, have our mobile operator. They keep investing on the infrastructure to ensure the network can support a lot of use case and digital transformation. Finally, of course, 5G ecosystem. This is still being built right now. A lot of good opportunity, a lot of ICT startup enterprise, they are looking for resources and support, aim to create a new ecosystem to support the different industry for digital transformation use cases. And of course, ultimately, they look for scale across different markets. So we're planning ahead for the whole year activity. So every month we have interest group catch up to bring different sector into focus in order to learn from each other. So please join our community for free. You will able to access a lot of information, get monthly update from our members, access to the monthly interest group activity. Of course, if you have support, please tell us, and we can connect you to the right partner closer to you. And then if you need any proof of concept support, we are definitely welcome to explore the technology together with you. And of course, if you are very good, we really want to give you a platform to speaking up your innovation, your thoughts, and facilitate business matching. The best of the best, of course, we would like to record your success, help you to expose in different platforms, in our website, in our case study, and of course, you are also welcome to participate on the mobile industry Oscar, which is the GOMO in the MWC. So about the interest group, logistic, port, and transportation, this is a very big interest group. Today, we only want to focus on aviation sector. So the global 5G market in aviation sector was valued at around 200 million in 2020, but it is expected to reach to almost 20 times, 4.1 billion by 2026. So it's a very promising figure. Of course, when we talk about 5G, it could be covering ground-to-ground connectivity, but also covering ground to the air, which means a lot of possible covering the sky, which can allow a lot of autonomous drone driving. We have some workshop did just last October. If you miss it, you can go back to access our content in the website. Today, we are more focusing on the airport, aviation, aircraft, and airline. So please stay tuned, enjoy our content. For 5G, actually, it really impacts entire the aviation industry. So for example, for the airport, with 5G, you can allow digital twin for airport management and energy efficiency, allow high definition 4K, 8K computer vision for safety and situation monitoring, a lot of autonomous vehicles, civilian for transportation, airport with a huge number of access and machine. So it is very flexible using 5G to monitoring a large amount of the assets. And then of course, robot patrol, remote control machine, kiosks, and a lot of possibility can be done in 5G for airport. And also it can replace the existing Tetra technology with 5G for rich communication for the staff. For the passenger, of course, I think you're well aware the COVID-19 impact about the people traveling. They have a lot of concern on the safe touchless experience. So this is expected with 5G can be delivered. And we're already seeing some airport also providing a virtual guided tour with aviator and telepersons, very precise indoor navigation and holographic advertisement and exhibition in the airport. For the airline side, of course, with 5G, the digital twins for aircraft, it can also allow predictive maintenance, very high bandwidth reliability for avionics system, package control monitoring, resource monitoring, and finally for the aircraft manufacturer and solution provider. I think a lot of 5G technology can really improve the productivity and help them to provide much better solution to the whole ecosystem and the industry lead. So 5G is not only a technology designed for a mobile phone used by a consumer. It is really designed for different sector. 5G will have to shake the aviation and the airport industry with the eMBB feature talking about gigabit throughput, very low latency, talking about millisecond throughput, which can control a lot of robot machine. And finally, of course, massive time IoT communication, talking about over 1 million of devices connected per square kilometer. So you can see this very nice chart. All the 5G feature individually and mix up, they can allow a lot of use case in the aviation sector. So 5G is a technology already rolled out for a few years, and it is continuously evolving to allow more feature. And a lot of people have different 5G scenario roll out, including public network, private network, and also a mix of the network combination. It is they all have different benefit and value. So we already produced some white paper. Welcome to go to our website to download all this very valuable information when you decide 5G deployment in your scenario. So finally, I want to recap a little bit about our region actually already rolled out 5G for a few years. We already seeing a lot of pioneer working with the industry leader to deploy 5G in maritime port, in airport in Hong Kong. We also see Malaysia airport sign the MOU to roll out their 5G digital airport. So today I'm really glad to invite our first speaker, Lily Lai. She is the Chief Information Officer from Airport Authority of Hong Kong. Lily, please.
Thank you, Terence. Firstly, let me share the screen. And put it on to slide mode. Okay, are you able to see the screen?
Yes.
Thank you. Well, good morning and good afternoon to everybody. I'm very pleased to have this opportunity to share the 5G development in our airport, Hong Kong International Airport. When we go through the transition journey now ready for Airport 4.0, we started from Airport 1.0. That means that's where we are talking about all the manual and analogic processes. Then with Airport 2.0, we focus more on self-service processes, followed by Airport 3.0, where the flow monitoring and processing is being optimized. And lastly, now we are ready for Airport 4.0, or we're starting it already. We are talking about connectivity and real-time information availability. With our objective of becoming a smart airport city and moving towards Airport 4.0, that means we are going to embrace paperless operations, enhance our operational and situational awareness, and subsequently then we can work towards a much lower cost base in order to become much more competitive. With Airports 2.0 and 3.0, many processes in the airports have already been started to be digitalized, such as the self-check-in, self-bag drop, and the digital wayfinding through a mobile application. Now we are moving towards Airport 4.0. So we are further emphasizing on connectivity and real-time information provision to connect all the stakeholders, processes, and systems on a completely integrated digital ecosystem. As highlighted in the government's policy address last year, the development of Airport City is a major driving force for economic growth of Hong Kong. And it also plays a very key role in the growth and development of Greater Bay Area, GBA. In shaping the Airport City, Hong Kong IA recognizes the importance of a high-performance mobile communication network in order to support the various innovations, developments, applications, etc. So in 2020, we decided to make a very significant investment to develop a 5G private network with the relevant cutting-edge technology applications to improve overall operational efficiency and passenger journey. With our 5G technology in the airport, we are talking about two coverages. The first one is about C-band. Basically, it's actually covering across the whole airport island. And also with mmWave, millimeter wave, covering indoor and selected outdoor areas. With the characteristic of 5G being an enhanced mobile broadband, allowing massive machine type communications and being a very reliable with low latency communication, we are able to deploy different technology solutions to improve our overall airport services and operational efficiency, such as what Terence has already mentioned about robotics, autonomous vehicles, real-time operational monitoring, IoT devices deployment, improving the passenger and customer experiences, etc., etc. Now, the following slide will show a video with further details about our 5G development in the Hong Kong International Airport. Let's have a look. Terence, could
you replay again, Lily?
Okay. Okay, the coming slides will cover the different categories of use cases that showing how we adopt 5G in our airport. The first one is about our indoor robots, and we have different functions such as for delivery, heavy duty carriage, environment monitoring, etc. We have developed a multifunctional robot, which is a flexible, modularized robot on which multiple modules can be installed on one robot to carry out all these different functions together. And these modules can be exchanged for different demand scenarios, such as the delivery function for goods, food, or documents, environmental monitoring, I mentioned a bit earlier as well, about temperature, humidity check-in, or Wi-Fi index check-in, etc. We also deploy HVA module for checking the malfunctioned lights on the ceiling, as well as detecting the liquid spill on the terminal floor. And also we have the thermal AI module to check body temperature of passengers, as well as other personnel in the terminal. The second use case group is about autonomous vehicles and the associated V2X, which is vehicle to anything, plus also the fleet orchestration system. In the Hong Kong Smart City Blueprint 2.0, it has already stated about the introduction of autonomous vehicles being equipped with CV2X, cellular vehicles to anything capability. When we refer to CV2X, we are talking about the low latency communication system between vehicles and vehicles, vehicles and pedestrians, vehicles and road infrastructure, or even with networks. So through the real-time information transmission in the Internet of Vehicles system, people, vehicles, and road infrastructure are all connected and coordinated together. It can also be applied to real-time traffic monitoring, incident management, and route planning to improve traffic efficiency. Together with the fleet orchestration system, we will be able to orchestrate between both autonomous and manual driving vehicles in order to improve the road efficiency optimally. In our airport, there's a new facility called Sky City, which is basically providing a dynamic lifestyle and family entertainment hub. With the opening of the Hong Kong, Zhuhai, and Macau Bridge and the Hong Kong Port, we want to enhance the accessibility between Sky City and the Hong Kong Port. So we'll provide a connecting bridge, and it's called Airport City Link, and that's what ACL stands for. This bridge will also be further extended to the Tung Chung Town Center. And this extension link is called Airport Tung Chung City Link, which is ATCL. Now, with both of these connection links, we'll introduce shuttle services for passengers with an autonomous transportation system, such that we can strengthen the overall transportation network, as well as enhance the passenger handling capacity via these links. Enhancing the passenger or customer experience, of course, is another target. These days, these entertainment services are very common, and even with AR wayfinding function as well via the mobile phone. Apart from that, we also further strengthen our self-service check-in function by leveraging on the 5G coverage of both indoor C-band and the millimeter wave. Now, the cloud-based movable smart check-in kiosks can be rapidly deployed or relocated at different areas around the terminal when the need comes up. At the same time, we are also deploying 5G cameras so that we can actually develop video analytics solutions to support different business needs. So with the 5G network being available now in our terminal and airport, we can have the higher deployment flexibility compared to the traditional fiber connection. And with the dual coverage of C-band and millimeter wave, that means we can have dynamic switchover whenever there's a need. And of course, with the high-speed millimeter wave support, we can definitely develop a lot more future enhancement initiatives. Another use case area is about operation efficiency. To us, that means we will go for a completely operational performance transparency. For example, with the remote marshalling, we're using the outdoor millimeter wave 5G coverage. Starting from late last year, we have started supporting smart remote marshalling operation in our passenger apron. And we have installed 4K camera at both the frontal and remote parking stands in the passenger apron in order to improve the operational efficiency. So now the marshalers will not need to be located on site, but rather stationed at the control center, which we call integrated airport center, to conduct both the pre-arrival stand clearance check, as well as monitor the aircraft docking process through the CCTV cameras. So with only with the private 5G network, we'll be able to have developed this solution and be able to improve the overall operational efficiency in our apron. Another sort of product or service that we have introduced is about the autonomous electric tractor, which is using both the outdoor and indoor C-band. Currently, this tractor is used to transport baggage for air-to-sea and sea-to-air passengers. And very soon in the near future, we'll be extending that to cover cargo transportation. And when the third runway actually goes live, we'll also extend this usage to the third runway operation. Cameras are installed on both tractor and roadside units in order to increase the safety factor. And we also, of course, have the remote stop control, just in case we have the emergency need. And this is only possible because we have the low latency 5G network. The last but not least about use case is IoT devices deployment. Now, of course, in a facility like the airport, predictive maintenance is one of the key functions. And so with IoT data, we can actually achieve this objective relatively easier. We have already developed the digital twin for some time. And again, on top of that, if we can have all the IoT data, we can actually empower the digital twin in terms of usage and increase improvement of the operational efficiency to a greater extent. So with this initiative, we are able to collect all the operational data from different data sources, that means all the IoT data, through the 5G IoT network, and integrate with our enterprise data platform in order to perform all the necessary analytics, in order to drive, transparency, data availability, and of course, at the end, it's about operational efficiency. And I think that's the end of my presentation. And I hope this will give you a clearer picture about how we are actually developing 5G and making use of it to develop our smart airport city. Thank you.
Thanks, Lily. Actually, your presentation is very interesting. I already we already got a lot of questions in the Q&A and chat box. So I think people are very interested how Hong Kong Airport working together with your partner, including China Mobile Hong Kong, and also the technology provider Huawei. So now let me introduce the panelists. First, I would like to introduce Johnson Zhang. He is the general manager. He's the general manager from the Network Development Division in China Mobile Hong Kong. Johnson.
Hello.
Hi, can you hear?
Yes, yes. I'd like
Yes.
to my screen.
Yes. Can you share your screen? Yes, we can see it. Maximize it, please. Yeah, switch to the presentation, switch the display setting. 这个显示设定。
不是，我拿不下来这个手团，拿不下来这个是。
你可以去这个显示设定。
Yes.
Yeah. Or you can just show in this way. Yeah. If you can maximize.
Yes. I'll show this way.
Okay.
Okay. I like to share some learning from this project. Actually, we are honored to be awarded to this project and partner with Hong Kong International Airport. The first day we will try to brief the Hong Kong 5G project scope. The first day the scope will including the cloud-based 5G core with a geographic redundancy, private, stable, and secure network. The indoor coverage including more than
Johnson, you have to change the page. You're showing page 2, right?
Yeah, this is in this page.
This is still on the landing page, the learning. Are you going to page 2?
Yes, this page. 5G project.
No, it's still showing the first page.
Oh, what? Sorry.
Or should I help you to share?
Yes, you help me to share. Okay.
Okay. Wait a moment. You have to stop sharing first.
Okay.
Not yet. You have to stop sharing. Can you find this?
Yeah.
Huh? Or okay, you continue here. Now I can see you change to page 2. Okay. I can control now. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead. I will hold you up to control. Page 2, right? Page 2, right?
Okay. Let's continue. The scope including a cloud-based 5G core with geography redundancy to private, stable, and secure network. The indoor coverage including more than 4,000 C-band indoor radio unit, and outdoor coverage including more than 500 HAU and AAU, which including mmWave and C-band. Hong Kong also use dedicated and shared use spectrum to achieve full coverage and enable applications. It's including 400 bandwidth mmWave spectrum and 220 C-band spectrum bandwidth. The Moray architecture was introduced to private service for Hong Kong IA private network and the MNO public network. The NSA standalone and non-standalone architecture was put on both C-band and the mmWave. The next page.
Okay.
What we learned from this project, we gain insight on the implementation of digital transformation. From the Google definition, the digital transformation prefer to use of new technologies to redesign and redefine the relationship between customer, employee, and passengers. The digital transformation of an appearance cover everything from the modelization of the application, the creating of new business model, to the constructor of new product and the service for customer. We also got some company and group definitions, but based on the above definition, most of them emphasize on the first, reconstruct our organization, process, business model, and customer relationships. The second, focus on transmission value, reduce cost, and increase efficiency. The third, this is the long-term system building, from technology innovation to business control, from organizational change to culture reshaping, from computational capability upgrade to the talent training. What does Hong Kong IA do? Currently, Hong Kong International Airport is building a comprehensive network for 5G application, which combine a high-performance radio access network and a highly reliable core network. Hong Kong International Airport is exploring innovation application which can realize the potential of 5G to benefit airport operation and support digital airport 4.0. Next. And also, the implementation planning matters the most to drive the success of digital transformation. Our infrastructure planning should face some challenges. Network performance should be granted. The challenge one is in terms of creating a new digital experience for customer, what a new service and applications Hong Kong IA need to be launched. The including but not limited to CCTV, V2X, AET, and mission critical services. Just like Lily just showed, they already launched some service and some application and the POC effects. The challenge two, how to balance between the efficiency and agility during the ability accumulation in transformation. It seems that most of application can be used in the Wi-Fi and the LTE. Why does we steer investment and we need 5G? Actually, we need 5G speed, latency, security, and mass connectivity. Evolutional and the mutual slicing solution is also on the roadmap. The challenge three, how to maximize the value of infrastructure. Hong Kong International Airport use mmWave and the MNO C-band spectrum to migrate existing applications and develop new applications which will fully unlock the potential of 5G features. Next. The next step, we will focus on digital transformation executions. The first, to explore the infrastructure and the digital transformation for the realization of the airport city vision, riding on the digital airport 4.0 blueprint. To explore with Hong Kong IA on the application developed for the management of airport passengers, traffic, and the logistic flow. To explore autonomous and unmanned operation development for the optimization of business operation efficiency with cost reduction. To leverage the strength of CMC Group together with CM Hong Kong leadership at the Great Bay Area, BGA 5G Industry Alliance, to facilitate Hong Kong International Airport innovation and application development. This is my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Johnson. Very good information to see how you help Hong Kong IA to deploy 5G, both private network and also using the public spectrum network. So now I would really like to invite Andy Bin, who is the Chief Digital Officer, Global Aviation sector of Huawei Technology. Hi, Andy. Hi, Andy. We can't see you. You turn off the, you turn off the video? Hi.
Hello. Good day, everyone.
Hi. Yes. We are very excited to hear how Huawei support the rollout, and what is your role to help industry for digital transformation. Are you going to share something?
Yes, I'll have a very brief introduction on the 5G. First of all, thank you for having me to participate in this interesting event. Just a little bit of background. I think the brand or the name Huawei is very familiar to all of you, but I just want to highlight that within Huawei, there are four major groups. The carrier group, of course, when we are talking about mobile communication, we would immediately think of the carrier group. And of course, Huawei, carrier group within Huawei has a long history and a very, very successful track record all over the world. At the same time, we also have an enterprise group. While the carrier group is focusing on telecom, the enterprise group really cover all the industries. In fact, I'm from this group, Global Aviation. So including transportation, energy, finance, services, etc., government. The third group within Huawei, it's cloud. Obviously, now cloud is a very important infrastructure for all organizations, and Huawei has been growing very fast in the cloud business. And last but not least, the consumer group, focusing on mobile phones and wearables. Now, on the topic of 5G, in fact, it cuts across all four groups. Of course, you need the infrastructure provided by carrier. A lot of the applications will be developed and explored in the enterprise group. And 5G, interestingly, is very close to cloud because it's also talked about virtualization. It actually brings the cloud service to everyone, to every device. And of course, with 5G, you will have devices, not just mobile phones, but wearables. And 5G, in fact, in the entire, this is from GSMA. From the study across all the industry, the value of the 5G business, it's in 2026 will be $1 trillion US. But if you look closely, among those $1 trillion, 620 billion will be what we call 2B. It's 5G for business. Broadly speaking, 5G can be used for consumer, like the traditional mobile business. But in fact, 5G is going to be even more significant in the 2B areas. That is for organizations, including transportation, manufacturing, retail, public organization, financial services, security, media, and healthcare. So this is really opening up the, if you like, turning the telecom business into a new area with great potential. And of course, you have all these different use cases in all the industry. The capability of the high bandwidth, low latency, and also the IoT capabilities will generate different scenarios with different industries. As you can see here, today we're focusing on transportation relating to aviation. But in fact, if you look at the remote control aspect, or the IoT aspect, or the video transmission aspect, it actually cuts across all the industry. So one of the things that I think we can learn is to not to restrict ourselves into one specific industry and try to look at what we call the atomic capabilities. In fact, in Huawei, we have identified 6 atomic capabilities that would deploy itself into 7 broad applications. Those basic 6 atomic capabilities will include, of course, low latency, the E2E latency. We're down to 10 milliseconds. The bandwidth, we talk about gigabit PS. Reliability, because Huawei is coming from the carrier side of business, so we are very familiar with 4 nines, 5 nines type reliability, because without the reliability, I think a lot of the, particularly relating to the mission critical application mentioned by Lily earlier, won't be able to be realized. But at the same time, we have to look at the operational aspect. For example, self-management, fast service provisioning, and mobility. These are more related to how to manage the 5G infrastructure and 5G service provisioning to ensure these values can be realized. So the typical applications will be, high bandwidth like video live broadcast or video surveillance. Because of the low latency, you can have effective augmented reality or remote control of, in this particular case, UAV or driving. And as you can see in the top row, the application industry can be very wide. Now, one of the questions that you'll be wondering, with so many industry, with so many capabilities, how do you consider the deployment in your particular area of interest? One way of looking at it is you can look at first of all, with 5G, we always talk about the 3 dimensions. The enhanced massive broadband bandwidth, and the ultra reliable low latency, and the machine type communication. So these 3 aspects is at the vertical axis. If you look across, you can see how these capabilities can be applied in both your personal life or in the social media or across various industries. Typically, you can see that because I think Johnson also mentioned that now all the videos are 4K, 8K. So the bandwidth requirement for the video is ever increasing. And 5G is ideal for delivering these type of applications. Now, there are some applications which really relying on low latency. For example, Lily talked about the self-autonomous tractors, and there's also new experience with augmented reality and virtual reality. These things, without the low latency, cannot be realized effectively. So that's a second group. Now, the third group is the IoT type. So you have smart wearables, smart home, smart industry, predictive maintenance, and all that. So when you are considering how to deploy 5G, you can really look at these 3 dimensions. And the fact is that the standard for 5G is still evolving. So just to summarize, opportunities, huge. 2026, 1 trillion, and 62% relating to B market. So if you are not just interested in personal consumer, but industrial application in your own domain, 5G is a huge opportunity there. And it can be applied to a wide variety of industry, but in Huawei, we look at 8 particular industries in which transportation is one of the main ones. Now, for 5G challenges, first of all, because it's completely new, there are new stakeholders. And for example, you have the operators, of course, but at the same time, you have enterprises. And there are also application developers and other third parties. So how does the business model work? How would it benefit all the stakeholders? So that is, because it's a new area, so we need to spend time to really think about it and find the right model for you. Secondly, the industry needs to work together. So now, of course, the customer is there and the provider is there, but because the 5G give us the innovation opportunity. So in this particular case, the user and the supplier will need to work closely together to co-innovate almost. Network requirement, it's high bandwidth, it's low latency. It's easily said than done. And then we have the reliability and security. So there are a lot of technical details. 5G is 2 words, but behind it, there are a lot of thinking. So Huawei has been spending a lot of research and development into exploring how to improve the network side of things. Operation and maintenance. All the technology can be nice and good, but if we talk about 5 9 reliability, and we talk about fast provisioning of services and devices, we really need an effective, automated, intelligent operation and maintenance platform. Again, this is something that I would encourage everyone to have a closer look to see whether, without this O&M platform, a lot of the ideas will just be concept and not reality. And finally, the industry is moving very fast. However, it's still evolving. So last year it was release 16. We are expecting release 17, and in fact the machine communication or the IoT side of things will become mature later on. So while the high bandwidth standard and capabilities is very mature now, and the low latency one you can start trialing. But for the IoT part, you probably want to put it at the third phase. So there are, again, some consideration in the deployment of 5G as related to the development of the industry standards. So it is high potential, highly profitable for the stakeholders. At the same time, there are at least we can identify 5 major areas of challenges that we have to overcome in order to realize the benefits. So Terence, that's my sharing. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Yeah, I think actually you mentioned 5G is an evolving technology, and then the massive IoT is coming in the just fixed on the release 16. Actually, I think a lot of operator already using 4G IoT technology as well as a supplement before commercial massive IoT availability. But it's good. I think now let's go into our panel. So Lily and Johnson. Yeah. So we have a lot of interest about your presentation and question. So first of all, I would like to ask about our panel. So I know that there are so many possibilities for 5G, right? You already share a lot of use cases. So from the airport or from the enterprise perspective, so 5G investment is not small, right? Especially to a scale in an airport. So how you prioritize different kind of use case when you start the project? Is it on the passenger experience or in the operational excellence, or you mentioned different kind of automation of process?
Well, basically, before we talk about use cases, I would say, because in our case, we do our own infrastructure installation. So we naturally has become our step 0. We have to sort of build up our infrastructure before we are able to really work on all the different use cases. But due to the pandemic in these few years, the passenger volume of traffic has actually dropped significantly in HKIA. However, the operational excellence and productivity boost will mean a lot to us, and also has become more or less the top priority. And with the productivity gain, our business and partners, of course, will be able to appreciate the necessary investment of this mobile communication infrastructure. So in terms of sort of really priority, even though I've mentioned so many different categories of use cases, the operational efficiency one would be fairly high.
I see. So Andy, at your point of view, is the existing 5G capability able to fulfill the operational excellence with your experience?
I think so. I do think so, because I think particularly with the example that Lily just earlier mentioned about, for example, the smart marshalling, the remote control aspect is so important because let's say in an airport, it's a huge area and you have manpower that need to be deployed all across the whole wide geographical area. So having a very reliable and effective remote control is useful. But I think it's also, there's another aspect. While I keep saying that the to-be side of business is 60%, it's a huge potential. But in fact, in order to get the support, let's say if you're in your organization, if you want to get your board approved on 5G investment, I think you need to put something in front of the customer. So when Lily earlier mentioned about, in airports nowadays, we need to consider about contactless journey. So these are some of the areas that maybe also entertainment in the airport with the augmented reality or the virtual reality. So I think the to C, the to consumer aspect will be very useful to at least showcase the difference in terms of the capabilities of 5G so that you can gain the support to further invest in this particular new area.
Thank you, Andy. So to Johnson, actually, this is also a question from our audience. So they are very interested to seeing Hong Kong International Airport deploy both private network in the MMA spectrum, and then also on the 3.5 gigahertz. So what are the differences in terms of this deployment, and then why is this necessary for a private 5G network in addition for the public 5G network, from your perspective, Johnson?
Yeah, I believe basically the question is about use case owner's choice and should come from the business partner in Hong Kong, and who is the best expert of Port Authority. I believe Hong Kong IA more prefer application which able to benefit the operation excellence from the CM Hong Kong as a network provider and the operator opinion. 5G network have three features: ENBB, URC, and the MMTC. ENBB can be the first priority and mature enough for the official development, such as surveillance, passenger payment. Just like Andy just said, we should show something to the passengers, and also URC, like applications like MCS, automatic pilot. CM Hong Kong work with Hong Kong to do the POC and explore the commercialized facilities. Finally, the massive connectivity over 5G network will be achieved after UE, which include the mobile phone and the chipset, and the industry more mature and cost effective. We need private network because we need to give the guarantee resources to this kind of applications, and no matter and no impact by the public network. I think this is the most important reason.
I see. So which means security, guarantee, performance is one of the reasons for very critical 5G use cases, right?
Yeah.
I see. So another question, I know this is a very pioneer in the world, actually really deploy a very big scale of 5G for airport coverage. So when you start the project together, right, I think you also mentioned some of the challenge. So we really want to know how you, as different part of the, how you play different role when working together for piloting some use cases, especially there are no references for all you guys, right, before that. Lily, do you want to share something?
Okay, from enterprise perspective, I would say engagement is almost the key focus. In fact, both internally as well as externally, in the sense that internally, even with all our business areas, the business functions that we are having in the whole airport operation, how could we possibly make use of 5G as such a high performance communication network to help improve the way how we operate? So being an IT personnel, of course, I will know better than our business areas how best the change in the operational flow or the way how we use different solutions to help them, not from technical perspective, but more from a business need or problem perspective, how we can actually make use of this technology to help them. Then they will be able to provide us a lot of at least problems in their own minds. And apart from our own internal business areas, within the whole airport, there are many different stakeholders. We have so-called the airport community. And all these different players or partners, if they have any area of operation that is not running optimally, they will either directly or indirectly affect our performance as an airport. And so engagement with all these different players are also very critical. And especially in the early days, the understanding of 5G was so minimal. So people will definitely question a lot about return value, like what Andy mentioned earlier. How can we prove to them that that sort of investment is worthwhile to spend. So definitely there will be some sort of trials or pilots. But having said that, because the scale and the capability of 5G can be actually quite big and massive. So even when we try to sort of like run any sort of pilot or trial, we are unable to really compare to that sort of magnitude. So that means to an extent, after a certain level of understanding and trying to engage different parties to see whether there will be some sort of appetite to go for that sort of improvement, then we almost have to work out our own corporate position to determine if this is something that we believe strategically is our direction to go. More than really just trying to know enough before we can make our decision.
Oh, I think it's not easy journey.
True, very true. It's a long journey indeed.
It's a long journey, a lot of engagement, a lot of talk and trial. Wow.
Yeah, even with all the mobile operators, all the key partners like Huawei and the others as well, we had a lot of discussions before we really make that call.
I see. So I just want to jump into another question because of the time. So I think I also mentioned before, 5G actually is still very new. A lot of limit in the supplier and the ecosystem, right? So I think the regional attendees really want to know how's your experience in finding the partner in ecosystem development and partnership. Is it very difficult to find people to work on 5G? Maybe this time we start from Andy.
Sure. I think the 5G has been, well, it's new. It's already, at least more than 2 years. So there are already some players that can supply not only the chipset, the devices, but applications. However, what we find is that, like Hong Kong Airport, I think 5G is gaining attraction in the aviation industry. So there are airports around the world that are also interested in seeing how to deploy 5G. So what Huawei has been doing is try to do a matchmaking role. For example, there was one interesting case where we talked about remote control, right? So one idea is to have a remote control air bridge docking, right? Instead of having a person standing in the air bridge to control, we use the 5G capability so that the air bridge can be controlled remotely in the control center. Now we find the air bridge manufacturer in China, and we work with them to introduce 5G into their current product. So we see that it's a win-win. First of all, the supplier will have a new market segment, and the customer like Hong Kong Airport will be able to enjoy another options to operate their air bridges. So I think we're not just waiting to see who is doing something. We're also taking an active role to encourage not just users, but suppliers to consider using 5G to enhance their capabilities.
I see. So Johnson, I know CM Hong Kong actually working very closely with CMCC headquarters. So from your perspective, is it China is a very good source of innovator and the solution provider? And if anything can share with us how you accelerate and help Hong Kong IA to develop the solution?
Actually, China Mobile has established 3 professional research institutes at Xiong'an and Chengdu and Shanghai in the mainland that dedicate to 5G application research and develop and ecological cooperation, leverage the develop and continue improvement of the 5G ecosystem through the huge market mainland China, including some application already adapt to some airport. Undoubtedly, the Hong Kong market and Hong Kong IA will also benefit from this kind of investment.
I see. So Lily, when you talk to the supplier, do you face a lot of challenge to motivate them for adopting 5G in your experience?
Well, I don't think the challenge in that way, in the sense, in fact, a lot of the players in the market are quite keen to move forward with the 5G adoption. So it's more like a joint force to explore what is possible. And if necessary, then we will test it out and try out together. In fact, when you asked this question, I was also thinking, we have been reaching out to lots of different potential suppliers to ask for opportunities for joint work to test out what is possible. And I think because of the 5G, on one hand, like Andy said, has been around for more than 2 years. But on the other hand, in terms of adoption and use cases, there are still a lot of opportunities that haven't been unfolded yet. So it is important for us to actually work with more parties to iron out exactly what is possible. And as long as everybody has the appetite to work on it together, I believe we can explore a lot more.
I see. Okay. So to move to our final question, actually we have a lot of questions posted in our chat box and Q&A. So even we finished this panel, I highly recommend if our panelists can go to the chat box or the Q&A section to answer some of the question, or if you don't mind, I think they are really looking forward for some connection to you guys so that they can have some idea and support to guide them to start their airport, their aviation transformation. So the final question is, so what are your expectations and plan in the next 6 months with the 5G? Okay.
Well, from my end, because we are about to finish the infrastructure installation of the current one runway and terminal anyway, so we will definitely be working on more and more use cases, trying to engage with different parties to trial the different use cases. But at the same time, because we have the third runway project also in progress, and that will be going live, well, in fact, part of it is already going to go live this year, and part of it will be in 2024. And with the whole third runway, we'll be introducing another project to cover the 5G installation, infrastructure installation, as well as developing use cases as well. So it's more like a continuation. We have started or kickstarted the snowball already, and we believe that that is going to bring a lot of benefit to us. So we'll continue with that and trying to engage a lot more airport community partners and the other parties as well to basically trial the whole possible solutions.
Johnson, your next 6 months?
For me, we promise to our customer, we must successful finish our KD6 and the KD7 and finish the infrastructure work. This is most important to enable applications. The second, we try to cooperation with Huawei and other SI vendors to migration the various applications to 5G and work with our partner and Hong Kong IA to combine some AI, cloud, and big data technology.
Thanks. Andy, your 6 months?
Yes, I think for the past 2 years, you know, the big thing that happened to our global aviation industry is the COVID pandemic. Now that we are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, we are seeing recovery in different regions. I think if you like, the silver lining from COVID is that a lot of our aviation partners, our airports and airlines are really seriously looking at how to transform themselves with technology so that they can better equip to adapt to future disruptions. So in the next 6 months, I'm sure, among many things, our airport users or Huawei will be talking to a lot of our airport customers about how 5G can help make their infrastructure and service more scalable, more flexible, and more resilient, so that future disruptions such as something like a COVID, hopefully won't happen, but nobody can say, so that we can be better prepared for all these disruption to keep our passengers safe, to keep the operation going, and to keep the industry, you know, back on the right road path.
Thank you. Thank you again for all the panelists, your very insightful information. So for the community benefit, actually, if the COVID-19, the situation become better, we are very happy to bring you to visit Hong Kong International Airport to taste their 5G deployment and then see how we can work together to support the industry in the aviation. Thanks again. So please don't leave, of course. We have another speaker is ready already. So this time we we are very honored. We invite Patrick Castagno, the Connectivity Business Development from the Digital Aviation in Airbus. So Patrick, can you open the camera? Hi, Patrick.
It's okay. Can you hear me? It's okay.
Yes, we can hear you. I know you are going to share from Airbus aircraft manufacturer perspective to see how important 5G it is. So give to you. Yeah, I can see it.
You can see the presentation is okay?
Yes, very well.
Very good. So thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be there today with a presentation from an Airbus and manufacturer perspective, I would say. So I will share some view connectivity about the digital aviation, the aircraft in the ecosystem, and what will be the objective of Airbus in the airport and 5G connectivity ecosystem and partnership. So just to highlight that today, the connectivity and the 4G, 5G is everywhere in the digital aviation. So you can see today that we developed from years ago connectivity from the aircraft. Today we use mainly 4G and public infrastructure in all airports in the world. So the 4G is used today for passenger connectivity, cabin crew, cockpit operations, maintenance, and automation, and adaptive and flexibility for airport operations. So we developed devices in the aircraft compliant with 4G and 5G to come. We have absolutely the same infrastructure and devices solutions for helicopters, and we develop as well the equivalent devices inside the drones and VTOLs for the future as well. All the connectivity is considered as enabler of connectivity today and enabler of solutions. So we started with aircraft, and now we are improving all our solutions to helicopters and future drones and VTOL as well. So just to come back, that's the infrastructure on the ground is essential to develop the digital infrastructure for the aircraft. So Airbus is fully involved in the different domains of 5G. So I will develop quickly the aircraft domain, but we are also fully involved in airport development, connectivity, MROs and factories. I will debrief on that, and smart cities, and UTM. So as you can see on the slides, the 5G is the art of communication from different ecosystems. And as explained before in the airport presentation, the 5G is very, very important in this ecosystem. And I will come back on that at the end of the presentation. Just to highlight that the 4G is already equipped in all aircrafts. That means today we are more than 2,000 aircraft already flying with 4G. It's a ground communication today, and we connect more than 400 airports in the world with the 4G and roaming agreement with public infrastructure. The next challenge is to include the 5G in the aircraft. So we are still in the prototype phase with the 5G, including new modems compliant with the 5G private frequency and modem. This is very, very important because the objective of Airbus is to connect to public infrastructure with 5G, but as well to private infrastructure, including the millimeter wave. So we launched last year a new definition of devices. Today it's called plug. This is the prototype definition, including the 5G, the Wi-Fi, BLE, and as well millimeter wave understudy. So in terms of devices, is almost developed. Now we try to develop the antenna, millimeter wave antenna in the aircraft. Keep in mind that the certification process on the aircraft is quite complex with a lot of requirements. So we try to anticipate the trends in the market, and I'm very, very happy that the trends of airports are going to the millimeter wave and 5G as well. So I'm fully convinced that both technology in the 5G. That means 5G sub 6 gigahertz and 5G millimeter wave are adopted by airlines. So it's a very good trend, and Airbus is fully supporting this approach, I would say. Just to come back, what will be the use case of aircraft? But clearly today is uploading and offloading massive data from the aircraft to the ground for maintenance. This is the main activity for Airbus. But in addition to that, I will present some additional use cases. That means PAX entertainment for uploading movies and information to the aircraft, and so on. So it's a full end-to-end connectivity between the aircraft and the airport. Next slide is challenges as well. So 5G is not only on the ground, and we try to develop what we call 5G R2 ground. So today we have big challenges around this new technology. We have prototype ongoing in China market as well. Keep in mind that the 5G is very good technology, but we have some constraints and standard to be part of the, I would say, the requirements. Challenge is very simple: Doppler effect compensation, large shell, endover, and so on and so on. Frequency band alignments and quality of service. It is what we need to tackle in the 5G development for the aircraft, because the speed of the aircraft is more than 500 kilometers per hour, and the cell size is as well a challenge to be released. We try to push the standard, 3GPP standard, to be compliant with the majority of, I would say, current telco standards. And we try to be compliant with the 5G standard for the aircraft as well. But anyway, keep in mind that the requirement from the aircraft is still challenging. We cannot use directly what manufacturers on the ground are developing. So we need to adapt. For that reason, the certification of 5G product in the aircraft remain complex and challenging. This is a key message. Another very key stream development from Airbus. This is a picture of our pilots in Toulouse. We develop as well the 5G for manufacturing. This 5G for manufacturing has two objectives. First of all, connect the aircraft for flight test, clearly, and as well deploy 5G for manufacturing with all use cases already deployed for the aircraft. That means we are in pilot phase, started 3 years ago. We started with a 4G and a private license in France, and now we are going to extend it. So we already extended the 5G in Germany. You can see the frequency bands, very important private license in Germany. We have the same license, more or less, accepted in France, not with the same frequency band. So we need to be agnostic. And we extend it to today with the 5G NSA in France. And we will start the 5G millimeter waves in the next couple of months from now. Use cases is very, very important. Manufacturing, very logistic hubs, remote aircraft, flight tests, maintenance, automation, and flexibility around the aircraft as well. So you can see we have many cases in a convergence, manufacturing and flight tests for connectivity from the aircraft. That's why we anticipate the market with a full installation in our site in Toulouse and in Airport and Aviation. Now, I come back now to the airport connectivity from the aircraft to the infrastructure. So Airbus anticipate the market, and we try to provide the infrastructure inside the aircraft for many use cases. Clearly, apron operations, runaway, emergency procedures, tracking, de-icing, connectivity from the aircraft to the ground, crew operations, pilot operations, and as well PAX experience. PAX experience today could be linked to the private infrastructure, but as well to public. So just in terms of recommendation, we recommend today the private installation to a company working in the around the infrastructure of the airport, leaving the PAX experience to the public infrastructure. is to avoid that the PACs will connect to the privates, allowing low bandwidth and so on. So the recommendation from Airbus today is a full use of company and local company in the airport, and the PACs and passenger to be connected to the public. I think it's a good recommendation anyway. We will see the trends in a couple of next years. Next presentation, just additional use cases. So secure communication is a key trend for Airbus between the aircraft and the ground. So the private connectivity infrastructure is highly recommended in that case. Today we use public, but based on the global infrastructure, the recommendation from security is to use the private infrastructure. So you can see today, it's very, very important that the aircraft could be connected or in all the tarmac and as well in wide range area of the runways, parking and hangars. That's why we can start the procedures and the process of offloading data by 5G in the tarmac area and not only at the gate at the end. This is more or less what we see in the use case today and what we call continuity of operations. So just to come back on the aircraft journey called today here, this is a full aircraft connectivity from approaching to the airport to departure. So you can see the different stage of connectivity from the aircraft. We propose product today, and we will continue to propose certified product in the aircraft. So from the approaching, offloading data, landing confirmation, taxi transmission, and as well on the ground, all the infrastructure connected to the aircraft will be a key enabler and use cases. That means the aircraft could be connected to all the airport infrastructure to help all the maintenance and airport operations, and as well the airline apron and airline operation around the aircraft. This is a key message. And just to come back on the infrastructure, so connecting the aircraft is very, very important. But the infrastructure of the cloud is very, very important as well. So you can see that on the one side the aircraft is connected. Keep in mind that the aircraft has to be connected in all airports in the world. That means today we have one SIM card, and what I try to push here in the slide is that a roaming agreement is mandatory between the aircraft and the infrastructure on the ground. That means we have to put requirements between public network and private network to be connected with only one SIM card. Today, the Airbus approach is multi-profile in the SIM card. It's called World Connect. But we are developing as well what we call multi-profile in one SIM card with a global roaming agreement 901 and private private profile in the same SIM card to be connected to any kind of private network. It's quite accurate, but anyway, you can see that due to the cloud connectivity platform, the ecosystem is very, very, very complex. One of the key challenges here is the security of the path between the aircraft and the ground. So the key topics is every time security constraints in this domain, including the cloud infrastructure. So I will not go into details of IPsec SFTP protocol of communication, but anyway, we need to maintain a secure link between our cloud with the credential and the aircraft, and provide the capacity of the aircraft to be connected as well to the airport infrastructure. It's very, very important. And that's all for my presentation today. So thank you very much for the attendance.
Thank you, Patrick. Very good. We heard your voice. You're looking for the seamless connectivity, right? For private.
Yes, absolutely. So I will
globally,
absolutely.
right?
So I will get the connectivity with my screen, and you will see my face now. Sorry for that. So it's okay. Sorry.
Yeah. Thanks. So of course, GSMA also working closely with our partner to ensure the 5G roaming framework availability. So definitely another area is the eSIM profile. We always support multi-profile in the SIM card. So yeah, we will work hard in order to fulfill the industry requirement. So now we have moved to the final panel. I'm glad to invite Vitash Chandra from the Managing Director, Communication and Media Lead from Southeast Asia of Accenture.
Hey, Terence, thank you so much. Hello, everyone.
Yes. I let you to introduce the rest of the panelists. Okay, pass to you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Terence, and a very good afternoon to everyone. So Patrick is one of the key members of the panel, and you just heard Patrick. So once again, Patrick, Connectivity Business Development for Digital Aviation from Airbus. And then joining Patrick, we also have Boon Seong Lim. He's the Head of Global Policy Government Relations AirAsia. So a very warm welcome to both Boon and Patrick. And we have a very exciting set of questions which we wanted to cover with regards to how 5G can have an impact on the aviation, which includes the aircrafts, airports, and the whole airline business. So probably we'll just get started. And Patrick, probably since you're right fresh from your presentation, I have this first question for you. What do you think, which is the biggest impact area for 5G when we talk about this whole aviation sector? Is it like around terminal, the apron, the maintenance, the retail experience? So based on your tenure and your experience with Airbus, how would you tackle this, including the whole network deployment and stuff?
So thank you very much for the question. So I will continue the explanation of my presentation. So the major impact of the aircraft is clearly the certification process for the device and the antenna. So I introduced the 5G sub 6 gigahertz, but as well the millimeter wave. It's a good trend already introduced by the presentation before. What I would like to highlight is we need to be connected to public and private installations. So the major impact is how to manage the synchronization and the roaming agreement between public and private infrastructure. Why the 5G private infrastructure is very important in our ecosystem in the airport and in the aircraft connectivity is the adoption of quality of service, security of the infrastructure, the new bandwidth clearly, and it has been detailed before, and better performance as well. So flexibility of the private infrastructure compared to the telco is essential requirement for Airbus and the aircraft connectivity as well. The second point as well is the secure communication between the aircrafts and the airport, and I will say the infrastructure, including with the IT platform. This is very, very important. So a secure communication between the infrastructure and as well the aircraft is a second requirement for that. In that way, we have different use cases already discussed before. Clearly, the aircraft maintenance, the apron approach, the video surveillance between the aircraft and the aircraft. I saw as well that the video surveillance in the airport ecosystem is a key point as well. So from the aircraft to the ground is as well a key point. Maintaining the security communication link, it's essential. And then fueling operational airlines operations around the aircraft during the apron is as well essential. So my recommendation is clearly security requirements, public and private roaming agreements is very, very a key challenge. And I will let my colleague Boon for the airline perspective as well just after.
Right, thanks. Absolutely. So Boon, now looking from a pretty much like an airline perspective, AirAsia is something pretty big in the Southeast Asia market. So what's your view in terms of the use cases and the customer experience?
All right. Thanks, Ritesh, for that question. I actually just wanted to build on a little bit more on what Patrick mentioned in terms of the key features of 5G, and he spoke about reliability, scalability, cost optimization, and whatnot. And I think if we look at where the airline industry is at this point in time, we're at a very critical phase where we actually need to think of ways to rebound from the pandemic that we have experienced for the past 2 years. What has happened in the past 2 years is that the pandemic has definitely altered the way we function as an industry, for the airlines, and consumer preferences have also changed as well. Essentially, to resume our operations, the key question that we always ask ourselves is, how do we balance between the safety aspect as well as the flexibility that we used to get previously? So you probably have a lot of like multiple layers of security and health conditions that are being in place at this point in time, which are inevitable, but to some extent, they're also making the travel process a little bit less flexible compared to before. And I think this is when 5G opens up the opportunities and also a lot of potentials for us as an airline to either enhance some of our existing technology or to even create new innovations that we previously weren't able to do. So for the past year or so, at least from AirAsia's perspective, what we have done is that we've definitely improved our technology. At this point in time, we are mostly operating still on 4G spectrum, of course, because of the inavailability of the 5G spectrum broadly in this part of the world yet. But we do see that going forward, when 5G is rolled out in a more widespread manner, we'll be able to gain a lot more advantages. Just to give you some examples in terms of what we have done, I think the first one will be the facial recognition that we have actually introduced for, at this point in time, for check-in as well as for boarding purpose. Again, the idea is to make sure that the travel journey can be as seamless as possible, and more importantly, can be as contactless as possible. And this is where we need to make sure that there's sufficient bandwidth for us to operate our system, to make sure that the travel journey will be uninterrupted. And we also need to make sure that the data can be held in a safe manner, because essentially we are dealing with really sensitive data as well. But on top of that, we have also been introducing our health travel pass, which is well integrated with a lot of the national system in the region. I mentioned broadly earlier about how travel might not be as easy now, because you used to be able to travel to anywhere with just your passport, but now you probably have to carry your test certificates. You also probably have your vaccination certificates and whatnot. And what our health travel pass does is that it allows you to upload all the information and all the documents pre-boarding, and all those things can be verified using our AI system to make sure that you are ready to fly even before you're at the airport itself. So even if you missed it when you're at the airport, we want to make sure that you still have the connectivity. And this is again where 5G comes in a very suitable manner to make sure that we have that connectivity, to make sure that the whole travel journey will be as seamless as possible. But of course, we also see a lot of new potential uses. For example, if we roll out at the airport, then we can make sure that we potentially could introduce AI-assisted camera screening, for example, to identify our passengers, and also maybe to identify lost baggages. We can also be introducing autonomous vehicles at the airport, for example, just to make sure that the baggages can be transported more easily, transporting our passengers from one terminal to another terminal to ease the ground operations. And even from aircraft maintenance perspective, we are looking into drone technology, which of course would require a much better bandwidth and also reliability in terms of the connectivity. So these are just some of the examples from an airline perspective, how we think that 5G will be able to help us in terms of running our operations and also recovering from the pandemic.
Right. Thank you, Boon. So pretty interesting, some of the use cases and examples you mentioned. You talked about the facial recognition for the check-in, the whole AI-assisted camera screening, the autonomous vehicles, the baggage handling, and even the kind of a transfer of the baggage or transition between the different terminals at the airport, which I know can be quite a bit of hassle. Now, when we talk about these 5G use cases, right, there is an end-to-end value chain around it, which is like all the way from getting the infrastructure ready, which you've been talking about, connectivity, devices, getting the whole edge computing, make certain platforms, and even the system integrator coming in, stitching the whole thing together. Now, what are the key challenges which you see in terms of adoption and implementation of these 5G use cases?
Maybe I'll start with that. So I think cost is definitely one of the biggest issues. So in terms of 5G, it's a very capital intensive infrastructure. And we're not just talking about the physical hardware, it's also time consuming as well. There are a lot of likely processes that are involved, either in terms of licensing, testing, retesting, hiring the required talent and whatnot. So I think the very high sunk cost and also the very high, the very capital intensive nature of 5G itself serves as a very high barriers to entry for a lot of people. And I think beyond that as well, we also see a bit of regulatory barriers. At this point in time, at least in this part of the world, there isn't a very clear direction as to what the 5G strategy would be for certain individual countries as well as for the region as a whole. And I think it's when it comes to the whole supply chain and the whole ecosystem, there are so many stakeholders involved, and it doesn't quite matter which model we are adopting, whether it's publicly driven or private driven. I think the clarity needs to be there, especially at this point in time where we are thinking about investing in the technology. And of course, talent is also one of the issues that we have often talked about in terms of getting the required skill sets, because I think 5G is a little bit more delicate compared to the previous spectrum, and in terms of the skills, it's also a little bit more specialized. So making sure that we actually have enough talent pipeline along the way to actually help us to achieve our objectives, I think that's also another obstacle that we'll probably have to handle. But all in all, I think what's really important is the readiness of the industry as a whole. I spoke about how there are multiple stakeholders involved here. Essentially, we really need to sit down together and work together and have that common goal in really driving it. At the end of the day, what we are looking for is the kind of connectivity that's efficient. You know, the framework should be encouraging competition to make sure that we have the efficiency. At the same time, it should also be transparent as well. I think this will be the main thing that will actually drive the success of 5G rollout in this part of the world.
Right. Thank you, Boon. Pretty interesting. I think you're pretty spot on in terms of the whole. It's very, very capital in. A lot of capex is required. It's like time consuming. The government regulations, the whole ecosystem maturity in terms of happening. So, Patrick, carrying the same set of questions from like an aircraft perspective. I mean, while you are enabling this whole Airbus, there is a lot of coordination, the ecosystem readiness from. So, what will be your view on this in terms of challenges and adoption?
So just to comment on the aircraft, the first challenge from Airbus is to develop the certification from the aircraft itself. So the investment on the aircraft is very, very huge anyway, due to the, I would say, the safety process and the certification constraints, EASA, FAA, and as well different authorities in the world. Keep in mind that even the aircraft is connected, we need to be compliant with local telecom services. So it's a challenge from Airbus. The next challenge is the big ecosystem infrastructure. So bringing all the partnership in the same ecosystem is very complex and take time. So today, connecting 5G from the aircraft to a ground infrastructure clearly is not difficult because we are compliant with the standard today, 3GPP standards. So just a simple connection in 5G, I would say connectivity, I would say it's quite easy, like your smartphone. So we connect the aircraft like a smartphone today. Anyway, the full path between the aircraft in terms of security stream and security communication to the ground, and the ground is the infrastructure IT from Airbus, passing through to all the ecosystem in the airports and the private airport is very, very complex. It's clearly an IT development with the cloud, with the mesh, and the full platform security. This is a big challenge, clearly. I will say that the third challenge as well to be put on the discussion is SIM card management. Some people think that it's managed by telcos. If we develop the 5G and aircrafts and an ecosystem, the SIM cards or eSIM or USIM, anyway, it's a key challenge for the manufacturer because we have to manage more than 5,000 SIM cards. It's not the art of our competency. Anyway, we need to be compliant with the standards to develop the platform for SIM card management, configuration, activation, and so on. So when you come back to the aircraft or the infrastructure, this infrastructure has to be compliant with the infrastructure on the ground. That means I cannot use directly the SIM card from the private network, clearly. Why? Because I have only one slot in the aircraft. So it's more multi-MZ cards and a combined platform. That means the partnership to create the connectivity in the aircraft with the credential, that means the SIM for us and the profile, is a key challenge. And so the partnership in this full ecosystem is essential for us. I will just conclude on that the CapEx and the investment for that is quite huge for the aircraft, but certainly the same for the infrastructure. What we try to push is to connect to any kind of infrastructure in the world, airport, by 5G, 4G or 5G. But by experience during the last 5 years, we see that we don't have positive business model only taking into account 5G or 4G connectivity. The business stream has to be tackled with services on top. That's why we need to consider that the connectivity just as enabler of communication. And then for the business model is all services on top on what you want to put in place from the aircraft, from the maintenance, from the airline perspective. So this is what we have today experience. The 5G has to be considered only as an enabler of the communication and as enabler of services in business stream.
Right, got it. That's a pretty interesting perspective which you gave. So continuing on the whole capex and the cost part, right? Now we do understand it does require a heavy capex investment to implement. So whom do you think would be taking the ownership in terms of investment? Who would be responsible for deploying the private 5G network if required? So probably a bit of view on that.
We have various experience in the different airports, mainly in US and Europe as well. So as mentioned by Hong Kong Airline, they take the responsibility to put in place. We have different models. We can have the telcos, local telcos, with a partnership with the airport. We have some governmental as well implication and complex infrastructure for the airport. We have local cities as well. I can take the example of Toulouse in France. The airport is managed by local authorities. That means the city of Toulouse, and they will invest in the 5G in the city and in the airport. And Airbus will contribute to help in the infrastructure development with the aircraft. So I think we don't have one single approach for the airports. Depending on the country, the local authorities, the regulation, and governmental, I would say, infrastructure and telcos. So we have various, I would say, use cases depending on the key challenge and partnership locally.
All right. Boon, would you like to add some of your views on this?
Yeah, I echo what Patrick mentioned, which is how I don't think there's a fixed model to go about doing that. If you look at the whole spectrum, on one side, you probably have the public sector driving the whole investment, and on the other, if it's like led to the market, to just decide on the private sector side, and somewhere in between, you probably have a different kind of hybrid in terms of private-public partnerships. And I think at the end of the day, we have actually seen like all these different models being implemented to varied degree of success. And what's really driving the success, like I mentioned earlier, is in terms of the clarity of the strategic plan of its own. So whether it's publicly driven or privately driven, at the end of the day, what's really driving the success of this thing is actually the part where there's a clear plan as to where it's going and how the technology will be useful. It encourages competition, and at the same time, there's a lot of transparency in terms of how those things are being done, in terms of allocation of spectrum, for example, in terms of the licensing processes, for example. And I think it's also because when we look at the world as a whole, there are different parts of the world which are obviously a little bit more advanced, either in terms of the technological infrastructure or even just in terms of the regulatory framework as well. So it really depends on which part of the world that we are talking about. And I definitely echo what Patrick said, that at the end of the day, you still really have to go back to the countries and the regions to find the best way that will work for them.
Right, right. And that is fair enough. That is fair enough. It depends upon, there are different models which are being deployed. In some cases, there are countries who are taking ownership to actually roll out the entire 5G network. In some cases, it's been auction of the spectrum. They're investing into certain private networks, giving slicing. So yes, absolutely. Now, we talked a pretty interesting thing when we were talking about the challenges over in the earlier question. One of the things which we mentioned was the maturity of the ecosystem and the partnerships. So what do you feel is the importance of the role of ecosystem and partnership to make 5G for aviation a big success?
I think it's extremely crucial to actually have all the players to work together. It's simply because the ecosystem involves many different stakeholders, and we are kind of dependent on each other when it comes to completing the whole supply chain. So when Airbus, for example, is designing the aircraft and making sure that it's 5G compatible, at the end of the day, whatever infrastructure that's in place should also be relevant to the end users, which will be the airlines as well. And in terms of rolling out our technology from an airline perspective, at the end of the day, it should also be beneficial to our clients, our guests, and our passengers as well. So I think having that kind of dynamic where the whole ecosystem and all the stakeholders work together within the ecosystem is one of the key factors that will actually drive the success of 5G rollout.
Right, perfect. That sounds right. Patrick, would you like to add your views on this?
So I confirm the view from Boone. The key players has to work all together. So it's a full partnership association, and in that case, airline, airport, infrastructure, telcos, and other, we should work all together. That's why, based on experience, a proof of concept is one of the key elements in the chain. That means if you want to put some mature connectivity with big players, the recommendation is to start with a proof of concept and to see what can, to say very simply, to lower the cost of the device, the complexity, the IT, and the formats, I would say, of the players. And when we come to the mature product, yes, we can what we call industrialize the full connectivity and the full solution in the ecosystem. So recommendation from an Airbus perspective is starting with proof of concept and doing step by step the solution into the ecosystem.
Right. Now, just building a bit on the proof of concept or the prototype, and it's a question for both Boone and Patrick. Now, do you typically, let's say, when we talk about all these different use cases which we had about the facial recognition, the baggage handling, the autonomous vehicles and stuff, how would you recommend, like, building on those prototypes, getting into the proof of concept, testing the feasibility, having the scalability? Is there like a specific way you go about when you are evaluating or considering a 5G use case? Is there a pattern which you have?
I think for us, when it comes to launching new services and whatnot, especially speaking from the experience of launching the few innovations that I spoke about earlier, the key takeaway and actually what drove the success of it was actually working very closely with the stakeholders. So launching the facial recognition, for example, obviously would require a lot of support from the airport. We started with just one airport. We worked very closely with the airport authority to make sure that can be rolled out either from just started with just initially a few gates and then slowly roll out to all the gates. And we're actually in the second phase right now that we are talking about, not just for check-in and boarding purpose, but also using facial recognition for retail purpose, so that you can also just make payments for your duty-free items using a facial ID and whatnot. And the partnership was actually quite fruitful in the sense that both sides understood the need of introducing all this technology, and both sides also understood the challenges that we were about to face when we roll out this kind of technology. So from the security point of view, how do we
All right, I think I think Boone is facing some connectivity issues. Probably Patrick, your view
with
on
the airport
this?
authority?
Oh, okay, Boone is back.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
Sure.
I think I got it was a bit laggy for a moment. But yeah, I was just saying that the partnership between us and the airport authority, and it's not just that, it's I guess for all the different kind of products and services that we have launched using 5G, and it's working closely together with the stakeholders for a common goal will be very important. And that's typically how we do it at AirAsia.
All right, perfect. All right.
And
So, yeah, sorry.
yes, and I can add some words as well in complement. So what is missing today? We have the view of the aircraft centric from an aircraft manufacturer. What is missing maybe in this discussion is we need to get feedback from the ecosystem. I would say airlines, maintenance, operations, airports, to complete what is needed from the aircraft point of view to be compliant with the new 5G ecosystem. That means today Airbus is manufacturer, but we don't know all the use cases in the airport. So if we can get clear feedback from the ecosystem and all partnership to complete our solution in the aircraft, it's welcome, clearly. We have today use cases, yes, and we develop this solution on the aircraft. But we are still missing certainly some use cases to be developed. So it is a full welcome approach, I would say, if the ecosystem, airlines, airports, IT infrastructure, maintenance, crew, operations can share with us as well what they need. And the role of Airbus is to provide this solution to all these actors and the players.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much for sharing your views. So let's come to let's conclude this discussion. It's been a pretty entertaining and engrossing discussion. So Patrick, maybe you start from you in terms of your any final words in terms of how 5G can impact. Then we move to Boon before we conclude the session.
So keep in mind that the private infrastructure is defined locally. If we define another private in another airport, both private network will not be compliant each other. So my requirements here, because the aircraft has to fly from an airport to another one, we should be compliant in terms of infrastructure, and we should have the flexibility and adaptability to connect to any kind of public and private infrastructure. That means airports have to work with other airports in the world to define standards, even in private network. That's why we started to communicate with the GSMA group. It's called the 5G and IoT manufacturing, including the 5G private standard. And if additional players can join us to develop, I would say, standards, it will be very, very efficient for all the community.
All right, thank you. Boon, your key final conclusion?
Yeah, I really like what Patrick mentioned in terms of flexibility and adaptability, because I think at this point in time, 5G is definitely going to be very significant and relevant, even what we experienced for the past 2 years. And with the dynamic of the travel industry and the aviation industry changing so rapidly and dynamically from time to time, we do need to have that kind of reliability and also flexibility and adaptability. And this is where I think 5G will come in and open up the doors of so many potentials and so many opportunities. I also want to go back to my point earlier about how the whole ecosystem, everyone within it needs to work together to make sure that this can be a successful one. Because if we miss the boat, then it's going to be very challenging for us to recover from where we are today.
Right. Thank you, Boon. So absolutely, I mean, I totally agree. See, 5G is actually changing the entire way we think we can imagine about the whole productivity, efficiency, the whole experience. Aviation is one of the sectors which is definitely facing a rough time because of the whole pandemic. But 5G, apart from aviation, is also seeing a very, very great rate of adoption, whether it be manufacturing, retail, even agriculture, and so on. So on that note, absolutely aligned on the key facts which you mentioned about the whole infrastructure compliance. I think that is very, very critical in the whole success and adoption of 5G in terms of having the compliance standards. Apart from that, the government regulations in terms of 5G, the spectrum bandwidth license, to an extent, the whole partnership ecosystem maturity becomes a very, very vital, important thing. So the use cases are in abundance. We have seen a lot of airports have taken that first leap of faith and the first mover advantage in terms of implementing these 5G use cases. There has been various different categories and spectrums and functionality in which use cases can add value, whether it be maintenance, whether it be experience, whether it be its security, surveillance. So quite an interesting, I would say, future awaits for all very, very exciting adoption of these 5G, which is going to make the whole efficiency, productivity, security like super, super exciting. So looking forward for like a healthy 5G adoption in this case. So on that note, I would like to thank to both of you, to Patrick and Boon, for being such engaging members of this panel. And Terence, I'll hand it back to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you too.
Thanks, Patrick, Ritash, and Boom. There are some questions in the Q&A boxes. So I really highly recommend you guys, if you put a few minutes to have to look at the questions. Some of them is just to you guys. So I think today is a really very good session. We really have a very good speaker lineup from mobile industry and the aviation industry. So I've learned a lot, honestly. I really learned a lot from how enterprise starting from nothing to experience the 5G journey from a Hong Kong international perspective. So I really encourage the aviation sector and the mobile industry sector talk to each other more, okay? Because if you don't communicate, we don't know how we can work together to support the industry, especially talking about such complexity, legacy, and also fermentation. So I think a lot of speakers already highlight the ecosystem is not yet mature. That's why we need a lot of work, you know, in the technology, in the policy, and of course, also in the integration, right? Talking about so many people, they have to work together. A lot of integration is required. So I think today's workshop is not an end, it's just a kickstart, I would say. I think the good thing is we already see 5G already deployed for 2 years. They are already pioneer, taking the challenge and working ahead. And then they have learned a lot. And the good thing is they were very willing to share their experience, to support each other. Because I think ultimately, Airbus or any aircraft airline, they really need not only one market to support them. They need global interoperability, a very robust, seamless connectivity. So this is very critical. So that's why I hope that today, as a regional workshop, we bring together the experts from different parts of the region. So connect to each other, learn and share from each other, and also bring the ecosystem to help each other. Because I think any innovation in one market, they could definitely help the other in the other market to accelerate. And some market may be good at other sector, they can also speed up and share their experience. So this is really important to address some of the big opportunity, but fermentation in this region especially. So finally, I want to share you the next, which is our APAC 5G industry community. So if you are not registered yet, please register to join our community. Any company, if you are passionate or interested on 5G, please join us. So after this logistic port and transportation workshop, we are arranging another one, which is on the healthcare. So please don't miss this. If you join us, you will receive the token to access our activity and also get the latest information about the APAC development in 5G in the industry. Thanks again for your time. So Christina, please hold the section for a few minutes so that our panelists can have time to fill in the to answer the Q&A piece. Okay. So once again, thanks for your time. If you still want to ask some questions, you can type in the Q&A boxes. So we will close the section by 5 o'clock so that there's still time for our panelists to fill in the response. Thanks again.
Thank you, Terence.
Thank you, Lily. Thank you. Thank you, all the panelists. Thank you.
Thank you, Terence.
Thank you.